everybody. I'm back. Yeah, I'm waiting for Krista to join me for the next podcast so we can keep her story going. And then I have some really great people also that I'm going to be introducing after that. So I'm gathering my list and it's going to be exciting. But I want you to know that I'm calling this podcast the best life ever. And the reason I'm calling that is because I've noticed that no matter what in life, you have ups and downs, but the best part of it is when you get over them and through them. It's like getting a trophy when you get through challenges in life or crisis. And that's what makes it the best life is that you keep going. You're not self-medicating. You're not trying to find ways to, you know, cope with it. You're working through it. And I'm not saying that, sometimes some people have to take medication to get through things like that. I'm not saying anything about that, but staying on them, that does make me question, what the pharmaceutical industry is doing to us sometimes, or the doctors. I'm so down on that because I had a really bad experience once when I was in my 20s with the doctor, and I literally was a victim of a overdose of a prescribed drug, which put me in the hospital for 40 days when I was very young. Ruined my new marriage. It took away my health for a long time, and somehow I just got over it. And like I've gotten over some other things, because that was kind of like the first part of being a victim, and then it just kind of ricocheted down. But I climbed back up, and I have met so many people that have done similar that I thought it'd be great to hear their stories, because I feel like in our world today, we have a culture of victimhood, and we're not necessarily getting past things. It's become like a lifestyle to be a victim. And it almost is a gateway to emotion of bitterness. And we're seeing that with a lot of people that are not getting through some of the things they don't like in our world. I know, I grew up in the 68 era. Or I've graduated in 68. So, at that time we had assassinations and riots and the love child thing and all that. And we did progress through it. And most of those people that were at Woodstock went and got a job and they became somebody. So I just want to see that for the society we have now. It seems people are getting stuck. I mean, let's face it, we have a word for a person, a woman who can't get past her own garbage. They call her a Karen. I didn't even know what that was one time. And then someone explained it to me, and I thought, okay, so I'm sorry that they're using a name that I have several friends that aren't Karens, but I get the idea that, we have people that get stuck in a place that you could literally label. When you get bitter, you run into evil. That's just the way it goes. It kind of opens the door. Now you can choose, do I want to do something evil, or do I want to get through this? Now, bitterness is something you definitely don't want to carry around, because it makes you out of someone that you don't want to be. It affects your health. It affects your mind. It affects who you are. So bitterness is not a good thing. You can be upset with somebody and not hate them. And I have so many experiences that I've been through. One of them was I had a boss that literally stole my commission. Yeah, that guy's name, he went down in the bitter pit. He was somebody that just ruined a lot of things for my life, and there wasn't anything I could do about it. And that's a whole story. But I worked through it. I had to let go of that money. I mean, it wasn't like a few pennies; it was thousands of dollars. The guy bought a Jaguar later on. So I wasn't too happy with that, but I was really kind of cornered. And I tried everything I could to get the money. And when I hit a wall, I had to walk away, basically give it to God and say, he's yours, whatever you want to do, because God's punishment is a lot worse than what I could ever do to that man. So I just let it go and walked away. and went on with my life. Do I remember it? Yeah, because it did adjust my whole budget and my whole life. I had a school loan I wanted to pay off, and I couldn't because I had to now do payments because of that of this man. And I wasn't the only one that he victimized. There were other people that also he got away with. How he got away with it, I don't know. But it's just like this fraud that we see in some of our cities in Minnesota and other places. I mean, we all know that stuff is screwy and something's wrong, but we just keep going because there's what can we do about it? It's not necessarily out of control. So at least it's being exposed. And I hope with all of my might that they end this nonsense with these people that think that they can do that. I look and we all got victimized by that. And let's face it, I've been working for 60 years, paying my taxes, following the law. I've been doing all that, and they're just walking away with my money. So, yes, we've all been victimized by that, and we should all be upset and do whatever we can about it, or at least support it because support ending this kind of a fraud that might be going on. There's people that have been like that all my life in politics or in the city. I grew up in Chicago, and I know a lot of the underlining corruption. I lived there. I can tell you a lot of stories. I grew up there. I knew the original Mayor Daley. So I know that that city has had a lot of situations that are not good, and I don't live there anymore because I got sick and tired of seeing people do things that they shouldn't, getting away with it. But again, so what brought them to that kind of evil? I think that sometimes, and I'm not a psychologist or a doctor, I just have lived a long time and I've observed and I've also had my own experiences. And I think that when someone gets really, really hurt or somebody takes advantage of them, they lose trust and they don't understand, or they don't have a spiritual side to them to try to understand humanity. This is not new, any of this stuff. It's been going on since we became people. But I think that some people get stuck and they think that everyone's supposed to be perfect and they shocked when there's some evil people around that take advantage of them. And instead of trying to work through it, they become very bitter and they blame everyone else and they magnify situations that are going on, and then they can turn to evil. And by that I mean just doing things that they shouldn't be doing, hurting other people, and that's what evil equates to, is hurting other people. And so we don't want to allow ourselves to get into a victimhood that doesn't that turns into bitterness, that turns into the possibility of evil. Blaming other people and not looking at yourself is a very serious problem today. It's like that thing with everybody gets a trophy. Um, it's the worst thing that could have ever happened to our country or anywhere. I mean, how do you grow in your emotions or your maturity if you're stuck somewhere because someone did something to you? Like, I was bullied like crazy when I was a kid. I was real thin and they called me Twiggy and Olive Oil. Hated that. Even my brother used to tease me to no end. Now, I could have stayed there or I could have worked through it. Eventually you work through it and you realize your part and their part. A lot of times their part is the big part, and it's not your part. The big part for you is to ignore them and to keep going and feel sorry for them, really. Because if they have to bully you or tease you so much to make themselves feel better, why should you have to get even with them? They're already getting even with themselves, if you think about it. That's the truth. So I get this newspaper. It's called the Epoch Times, and they have some of the best stories in there. And it just so happened, I was thinking about this, and I'm trying to get across the point why I'm calling it the best life ever. And it is because I met so many incredible people that have overcome things that you just can't believe. You'll hear some stories, and then I meet people that want to sit and blame people and hate people and spit on people. I mean, I hear stories about somebody, you know, being hurt by their ex-husband. And instead of getting through all that, which is extremely painful, they decided they were going to hate all men and and not like anybody that has any kind of authority. Oh, it's just crazy stuff. You can see through that if you listen hard enough. What do you do with people like that? There's nothing, you don't have control over it. You didn't cause it. You can't cure it. And you definitely don't have control. You can try and talk to people and help them to see there's a better way and look at the light instead of the dark. But people just, you get bitter and that grabs you. Not only does it, the Bible says that bitterness really gives you brittle bones and it affects your health and your mind. So that's something to really take a look at if you're struggling with somebody that's victimizing you right now. Examine yourself and what part of it did you play. And if it's no part, then the best thing to do is really understand that you can rise higher than that person that's victimizing you. And again, there are some situations where people have been captive or the sexual abuse or, all that takes some time to really get through, and you have to have help for that. I don't think you could do that on your own. These people that do human trafficking, it devastates me to think about it. And I know that those people, men and women that have had to go through that, their lives have been really affected. I have seen some rise above, but then I've seen some others that haven't. And I get that. So you have to have help sometimes. But I read this article. It's called It's Time to Abandon the Culture of Victimhood. And it was such a good article because, it names like people like Helen Keller. Well, we know Helen Keller when she was a child. She was pretty wild because she couldn't speak or talk or communicate. She was trying to get her message across. But once she found someone that cared about her, and again, she got help, she became this amazing person that didn't let her deafness or being mute or blind affect her life. If anything, she contributed to life more than a lot of us will ever do. And then it also mentions Viktor Frankl. He spent 3 years in a Nazi camp. His whole family was murdered. And I think to myself, oh my gosh, how did these people go on after that? I mean, I look at Corey Ten Boom, and there's other people too that we have examples of that have risen above their victimization. And I just want the stories that you hear on this podcast to encourage you. If you run into being a victim, know that this is a road you're going to get out of. You're not going to stay there. You're not captured by it. You're going to fight your way out. In fact, I read another story in the Epoch Time, which I think is like, it's going to stick with me. It's about a farmer that was bringing their pigs to slaughter, and they were getting them on the truck, but there was this one pig, and she wouldn't go on that truck no matter what. She got away. They chased her all over to try to get her on. She literally wiped out 4 grown men, damaged some of the barn, and just went wild. She was not. It's like the farmer said, she don't want to die today, and so she fought. Somehow she knew. So he goes, just let her be. We're gonna keep her. They kept her, and she became one of their greatest breeders. And she produced all these little piglets, and they named her Braveheart. And I think that was so inspiring to me to know that sometimes you got to fight so hard that you knock over 4 grown men, but not literally. I don't want anybody to do that, but in your mind, the battle is real, and we may have to be really, really strong sometimes to get past whatever's happening to you. So I hear stories every day. I am a coach. I'm not a counselor. I was a minister to singles for a long time. They have some hard stories because a lot of them are divorced and I find that a lot of the divorced people in the church are the victims of a marriage that went wrong, or somebody didn't want to be married anymore and left. And most of them are, and they have to get through that. They have to. They have to, because otherwise, how do you work? How do you take care of your kids? How do you take care of your house if you're feeling like, this is the end of the world for me? Um, so in the singles groups, we used to help each other quite a bit to try to get through things. And I've been through it myself. And I remember the one thing that woke me up is my first marriage, because I've been married a couple times. Uh, I was young. I was in my 20s, and I know that it was poor me all day long. I had a little baby, and I could hardly survive, financially and everything. We were literally eating spaghetti and water and Cheerios and water because I just didn't have the money at first. And I used to talk to my friends, and I was totally a victim. And I just went on and on about being a victim. And finally, one of my friends said, "Look, if every time we get together, you're going to be playing your violin of poor me, then I am not going to get together with you anymore." And I was like, okay. I got pretty defensive, but I went home, and those words changed my life because I didn't want to be like that, right? Nobody wants to be like that. So it changed my life, and I found ways to get through that, to find joy in my life. And as life went on, and I had many other stories where I was victimized or made a stupid decision, and I used that same method to get through any kind of situation that was really hard or hurtful. So hopefully, while you're listening to me and some interviewing, we're gonna have. I did find some interesting people. Hopefully, you're going to take some real good nuggets out of that and be able to find a system for yourself that when you run into um, somebody that's bad, evil, makes you a victim because they want to blame you for something, you'll have tools to walk away and be able to be better and even sometimes make amends with that person. You just never know. That's the goal, right? To always be able to solve the problem and make amends. It doesn't always work. I never did get my money from that guy, and I had to go on and take it as the loss and move on. So that's what you got to do sometimes. So I want you to think about this culture of victimhood in our society, how it really needs to end. People need to realize not everybody gets a trophy. All of us are going to experience hurt, and all of us have a choice of how to handle that and what to do with it. And all of us can contribute to the world some joy. So I look forward to seeing you next time. Can't wait till Krista comes back. And she had some things that interrupted her time, but I'm really excited for her to come back. So thanks for being here.